Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we're actually talking about TikTok because President Biden just revoked President Trump's TikTok ban efforts, and here's why I don't think he should have done that, and we will get to that in a moment. This is coming from Cyberscoop, and this is actually some really interesting news. Now, obviously, as I just mentioned, President Biden yesterday issued an executive order that overturns the Trump-era effort to ban both applications from China, TikTok, and WeChat, but it offered, basically, this executive order offered new guidelines for federal agencies to assess the national risks of such software. Now, by virtue of this, the order emphasizes additional criteria for the Commerce Department to use in assessing whether to restrict U.S. use of foreign software apps. This criteria, includes whether the technology is connected to foreign military or intelligence agencies or involved in malicious cyber activity or the collection of sensitive personal data. Now, this order is essentially a reprieve for TikTok. Obviously, as you know, I've talked about them on and on. They're owned by a Beijing company called ByteDance. Then President Trump issued an order that sought to ban U.S. companies from providing internet and content delivery services to TikTok, citing concerns that Chinese spies could exploit that data. I did videos on that. I actually applauded the former president for that. Again, this is not a political issue. We're talking purely cybersecurity here. But the implementation of that order was held up by legal challenges, obviously set forth by TikTok, which basically denied that it was improperly using customer data. Interestingly enough, there have been developments on that as well. And I actually did a video on that a few days ago about now how TikTok is just without your consent now going to start collecting biometric data. So I don't think them denying improper use of customer data is warranted because they continue to just collect it without your consent. I literally did a video on that, as I mentioned. Go check that one out. Now, White House officials say that this order is going to allow for more flexibility in combating technology threats by not focusing on a particular software app. And I think that's correct. We have to create a framework for standards for all applications, both foreign and domestic. Now, authoritarian governments, such as China, tend to not share the same the same standards, if you will, for protecting online rights of their citizens, and instead, quote, seek to leverage digital technologies and Americans' data in ways that present unacceptable national security risks. That is according to the White House statement. I completely agree with that. It's about time we actually start having leadership talk about that in some way, shape, or form. No past president has done that in that way, so I'm happy to see that. Now, this order, also tasked the Commerce Secretary with producing 2 reports for the White House. One with recommendations on how to protect Americans' personal data, the other with suggestions for further executive and legislative actions to address the national security threats from foreign apps. And I quote, "The courts had blocked implementation of the Trump orders, so there were no bans in effect." That's according to James Lewis, Senior Vice President of the Center for Strategic International Studies. And I quote again, "This executive order lays out a strong basis for deciding to take actions that should meet the court's objections." Now, this is the second time in as many weeks that President Biden has taken executive action involving Chinese technology. On June 3rd, he expanded restrictions on U.S. investments in the Chinese defense sector with an order aimed at curbing the spread of surveillance technologies. These directives also come as U.S. government officials are continuing to investigate an alleged Chinese hacking operation that targeted trade secrets in the U.S. defense sector. That actually was Honeywell back in the day. You can go read about that, but they actually accidentally disclosed, in violation of ITAR compliance, a lot of secrets on basically U.S. military-based technology to the Chinese government. That's obviously a huge problem. That was a mistake on Honeywell's part. They got a $13 million fine, which was a slap on the wrist, and here we go. So this is a huge problem. I applaud President Biden for basically taking a holistic look at this, but I fear this is going to fall on deaf ears. And the deaf ears that I'm talking about is one, essentially the U.S. population. So even if the Commerce Department is putting this out there, there's going to be a large segment of the population that, one, isn't simply going to read it, or there's going to be another large segment of the population that's going to read that and say, well, it's coming from the Biden administration, so I'm going to do the opposite. And then the few of us that actually get it have already been on board with this, for a very long time. I don't try to get into politics here, but anything that we seem to do lately is a political football. And I would love to see both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats and independents, the three of them that are elected, into office in Congress and the Senate, actually look at these national security standards for technology and actually start implementing laws that help protect not just the U.S. government, but citizens as well. We had at the end of 2020, and I interviewed the Congresswoman Kelly, that put out an IoT security bill for the government that was unanimously voted upon by both sides of the aisle and signed into law by President Trump. And I'm obviously a huge fan of that because now we are protecting the U.S. government. President Biden put out an executive order basically making all major federal agencies scramble to keep up with new stringent cybersecurity directives from the White House. I'm thrilled about that. I'm also very happy that they're looking at creating a scoring system, but also understand that there's going to be a lot of apps that fly under the radar. There could be apps that are developed here that might have ties, basically back to an authoritarian government that are not visibly known, because there's a lot of corporations that simply don't disclose financial visibility, especially smaller developers. And so it may simply be developed in the United States, incorporated here in a state like Delaware, but it's sending all of our data back. These are things that we actually have to really think about and really check. And so I think when we are looking at banning something like TikTok, I don't think President Biden should have actually stopped that. While I disagree with President Trump on the political reasons, for banning TikTok on the cybersecurity side and data privacy side and biometric security side, I 100% agree with him. And so by virtue of that, I think that would have been a real shot across the bow to say we are not taking basically this lying down anymore. That millions and millions of Americans are actually using this platform and they don't realize it, but they are getting their data mined and sent to a government where they have no legal recourse. You're going to try and sue the Chinese government to get your data back and have them erase it? Are they even going to respond to you, let alone attempt to do that for you and tell you that they are? No. Absolutely not. And China has laws that basically tell any Chinese owned company that has information on Americans that the government is required to gain access to that information. That's all Chinese businesses, which means any app that is being developed out of China is at risk for this. That's a huge problem, and people don't realize these things, and we don't vet the apps. We download every stupid game that looks good or every calculator app we think that will improve our lives or whatever it is, and here we are. So this is, I think, in some ways a good start. I'm not a fan of anybody using TikTok. Again, go watch my other videos on this. I have been rather prolific on TikTok as being just an app we shouldn't touch, but in the grand scheme of things, if this new administration is creating a new cybersecurity vetting framework for software that's foreign as well as here on U.S. soil, I think that's a wonderful thing. And I want to see all of these things come to fruition. I'm just hoping Congress, both houses, get on board. And I think that's beyond important too. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.